What's up, guys? This is going to be the solution video to the 4 practice problems that are proposed at the end of the Methods and Instances video. And again, all these practice problems were taken from www.codingbat.com, and that's a resource that asks you a bunch of questions and tells you to write different methods that do certain things relating to arrays and recursion and strings and different things that are important for the APCS exam. And what I did is I basically just got 4 problems, and we're going to answer them right here. And the style of how we're going to answer these is we're going to first create the method, and then we're going to create test cases within our main class to test whether different possibilities work. And so the first problem says, start with 2 int arrays, A and B, each length 2. Consider the sum of the values in each array. Return the array which has the largest sum. In event of a tie, return A. And just before I start, I want to say these questions are pretty basic. You probably won't find this level of simplicity on the AP exam, but it's good to have a foundation before moving on to some of the more complex problems. And so this is a public int array method, so obviously we're going to have to return an int array. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at this sentence that says, in event of a tie, return A. So we have to look at the sums, and we can set an if statement that says, if A of 0 plus A of 1 is equal to B of 0 plus B of 1, then return A, because in event of a tie, return A. Then we're just going to set an else if statement, and we're going to copy this right here. But in this case, we're going to set A greater than, so we're going to, this says if A of 0 plus A of 1, because again, all these arrays, or these 2 arrays, are each of length 2, and so if A of 0 plus A of 1 is greater than B of 0 plus B of 1, then return A again. And then we can just set an else statement. We don't even have to specify. That's the glory of the else. Whoops, spelled return wrong. And there's the method. What we can do is we can come down here to our main method, and we can write some test cases. And so our class is called practice problems, so we're going to access that this way. So practice problems test is equal to new practice problems. And we're just going to set int array 1 is equal to, what is it equal to? Maybe 1, 2. And int array 2 is equal to 3, 4. And if we go ahead and access this method that we wrote, it is called bigger2. It's an int array method. Bigger2. We can specify A and B. Or sorry, not A and B. Those are the parameters, 1 and 2. And if we go ahead and run that, whoops, I forgot my print statement. The method will return that, but it won't print it to the console. That's what we're missing. So if we go ahead and run this, now that we put our print statement, that is our answer. And the reason why it does that is because that is the memory location of which the array that we created is being stored. So what we have to do is we have to say system.out.println test.toString So I actually had to pause the video to figure out the problem that I was having with the solution. But what was happening if we go ahead and comment this bit of code out, if we go ahead and run this, whoops, well so I actually had to pause the video and figure out a solution to what was wrong with the program. And what was happening is it was printing that array out, or this array, which in this case it would print out this 2, which would print out B. It wasn't printing out the array, it was printing out the memory address of the array. And what I had to do was import java.util.arrays, which is a class of arrays, and I actually had to set an int array called print, and set that equal to, again, test.bigger2, which is calling or invoking that method. And what I had to do is set a print statement that said arrays.toString of print. And what this toString method does is it allows you to actually see the contents of the array being printed instead of its memory value. So right now it's 3 and 4. If we set this to maybe 1 and 7, you'll see that it will print out 1 and 7. If we set this to, let's see, 3 and 2, and 1 and 5, or sorry, yeah, 1 and 5, and go ahead and run that, you'll see that it prints out 1 and 5 because that one, the sum of that is bigger. And yeah, so whenever you're writing a program using arrays and you're printing that array from a main class, you want to be using the toString method because you are in theory printing out that array, but you want to print out the contents of the array as opposed to the memory value, the address at which that array is stored in your computer. And so that's good. We completed that one, and we can go ahead and I'll leave this up for you guys. And problem 2 says this: the squirrels in Palo Alto, because go Palo Alto, spend most of the day playing. In particular, they play if the temperature is between 60 and 90 inclusive. Unless it's summer, then the upper limit is 100 instead of 90. Given an in temperature and a boolean is summer, return true if the squirrels play and false otherwise. So we could go ahead and comment this out. Public boolean int temp, and this is again going to return true or false. We can just put a quick return method because I don't want to see that error message when I'm coding. And so what we do is this: we can set a quick if statement that says if is summer. We don't even necessarily have to say if is summer is equal to true. We can do that, but we can just also say if is summer, which is actually a lot easier to do. It says that if summer, then the upper limit is 100 instead of 90. So we can say something that looks like this: if temp is greater than or equal set our curly braces, and we're going to do another if statement that says if temp is less than or equal to 100 and temp is greater than or equal to 60 because it's inclusive, then return true for squirrels playing. Otherwise, return false. Now we're going to go here and set another if statement, and this is if summer isn't true, because if we read that this boolean is summer is true, it'll go in here and do that and return true. If the temp is between 100 and 60 inclusive, otherwise return false. And then set this to say if temp is less than or equal to 90 and temp is greater than or equal to 60, return true. And one thing to note about methods, whenever you have, and this is more specifically in Boolean methods, if you have a return statement, so if you see that if the Boolean is summer is true, and it go ahead and reads this nested if statement, and this is also true, this will return true, so this method will have a true value on it depending on the bounds, and if it meets those bounds within the if statements. This return true method, or statement, will actually override everything else. So it won't, if this is true, it won't even go ahead and read these next statements. Your method will just print true. And same thing here. If this is true, it won't go ahead and return false unless all of these are false. And now we can go ahead and write some test cases. We already have our practice problems test, so what we can do is we can say test.squirrelplay, and we can set an int maybe 78 degrees, and we'll say is summer is true, because right now it is summer. And we can go ahead and system.println that, because we want it to print. And so right now this is going to print true based on the bounds that we set. And if we go ahead and drag this, we'll see that it prints true. We can mess around with some other values. We can set this value to 91 and set is summer boolean to false, and go ahead and run this again. We'll see that it prints false. And so that's our method. If you want to go ahead and take a screenshot of how I did that, you can go ahead, but now we're going to move on to problem 3. And problem 3 says this: given an array of ints, return a new array, length 2, containing the first and last elements from the original array. the original array will be length 1 or more. And we can go ahead and comment out this method. And again, this is an int array method, so we want to take a look at what data type this method is, and go ahead and return whatever value or data type that method is. So we can go ahead and we can set a local variable called new array. Whoops, not int new array, int array new array, and we can set that equal to, if we put our braces here and our semicolon to close things, we can say nums of 0, and that's accessing the first element of our array, and our last element, again, and we've gone over this in previous videos, will be nums of nums.length using the length method -1. And this can go ahead and print out new array. And that's good, and we can make some test statements, and we can say system.out.println test.makeEnds, and we can set an array. We can set it with 1 being the first element, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 be the last element. Whoops. Actually, let's delete this and just make a local array. And we can call it the array. And set this equal to 1 is the first, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if we invoke the makeEnds method and use the array, this local variable array that we set, and we call the makeEnds method, it should print out 1 and 9. And again, we run into this memory storage error again, so we have to use test.makeEnds, the array, and we have to use that toString method. So we can go ahead and say int new array, or int array new array, is equal to test.makeEnds, the array, and then system.out.println arrays.toString using the toString method of new array, just passing more things on. And so this should print out 1.9 instead of that memory address, and it does. If we go ahead and change things, if we set this to 152 or 53, it should print out 53, 100. It does if I drag that over a little bit, and that's good. Again, we have to use that toString method because for some reason when we're accessing arrays in a different method from our main class or our main method, we have to use that toString so that we can get the actual contents of that array as opposed to the memory address in which it is stored on our computer. And now problem 4. This is our last problem. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of this stuff. You probably can get a better understanding of what these methods are doing on your own. I hope you don't need me to solve these because these are pretty basic methods, but if you need my help, that's awesome. And this next problem says, given a string, return a string length 1 from its front, unless front is false, in which case return a string length 1 from its back. The string will be non-empty. So here's what we do. If we go ahead and comment this method out, and we notice that this is a string method, so we have to return a string. For now, we can just put this so we don't get that error message. But we can say if, set an if statement, and we want to access this front, so if front then return this string that is being passed, substring 0 and 1. And because this front boolean is true, we can just return str.substring of 0 and 1, which will print out the first letter in that string. And then we can go ahead and set another return statement, and this will be if front isn't true. We can just say because we want to return a string length 1 from its back, we can do, I hope you can guess this, str.substring of str.length method -1. And that will be accessing that last letter or char that's in the string. So we can delete some of this stuff just for spacing, and we can set some more test cases using this method. So test the end, and we can set a string and a boolean. We can set this to true, and we can set this string to hello. And if we go ahead and run this, whoops, we actually forgot to print. I actually have been repeatedly forgetting to do that. I hope you're not as clumsy as I am. But this will print age. And if we set this to false and go ahead and run that again, it'll set it to O. We can change the string to pervids maybe. It'll print that S. And if we set this to true and run it again, it should set it to P. And again, what we did is just said if front is equal to true. You don't need to put if equals to true. We talked about that. Then return str of substring of 0, 1. And this again this return statement, if it is true, will override this return statement and won't even be read. And str to the substring of 0 and 1 will obviously return that first char, the first letter in that string, unless front is true, which it will return the substring of the length -1. So those are the solutions to this video. I hope you were able to get, or at least get part of these problems right. They can be a little tough at first, but all it takes is some practice and some knowledge of the methods that you need to solve some of these logical problems. And if you want to get more practice, again, you can go to www.codingbat.com. This is where I got really good at solving some of these methods, and hopefully they can give you some practice and some hints on how to do well in the AP exam. Thank you so much.